Okay, so here is the complete system. The ESP32 that you are seeing is the gateway node. It is connected directly to the Raspberry Pi via USB cable. So it's blinking now and it's connected to the Raspberry Pi. So what we will do now is we will run the firmware on Raspberry Pi in order to communicate with the ESP32. So here is our Raspberry Pi logged in, and I will cd into the folder where I have the firmware, and then I will simply run it. Okay, so it's running. So what you can see now is it found zero number of nodes in the mesh network. That's because we haven't connected any mesh node. So let's add one mesh node in the network. So I have flashed the mesh firmware onto these two ESP32s. Let's start this one. So what we need to do is simply just power it up. Okay, so it's powering up. The both LEDs of the gateway and the mesh node will start blinking in synchronization, which means they are paired up. So it's trying to pair with the gateway. It might take some time while the pairing is being done, but once it's done, the connection is very stable and you can share the data two-way. So it's actually a two-way communication. Okay, so now going towards the Raspberry Pi again. So it's starting seeing the mesh data, and you can see that. Okay, so it found the mesh in the network. So what I have done is each mesh shares its MAC address and the data. So data can be anything. It could be your sensor values like weight sensor values or anything else, but the first thing is MAC address to differentiate each node in the network. So that's how it's collecting the data, and the data is being sent to the MQTT, AWS MQTT IoT, using IoT SDK provided by AWS MQTT. So it's being published to the network, as to the broker as well. So let's add another node. So this node is the second node that I have, is again already flashed with the sensor node firmware. We just need to power it up as well. So once it starts in blinking with other two nodes, it will go into synchronization with them. So the LED doesn't need to be blinked like at the regular same intervals, but they work. So now you can see that we have another node added, and it is detected automatically by the firmware running on the gateway, and it's being sent to your Python firmware. Now both of the MAC address we have here, and both of them are being published as well to the MQTT. So data for both is being published to the MQTT broker. The MQTT broker details can be set in configuration files present with the firmware. So this whole thing is a two-way thing. So you can actually send the data, publish data from your web app or anything else to this program, and it will be broadcasted to each node through gateway. So gateway is a middleware between Raspberry Pi and the sensor nodes. The gateway collects the data from the nodes and publishes it to the Python firmware, while Python firmware gets the data from a MQTT broker and send it to the gateway node for processing, while the gateway node just broadcasts the data to all the nodes in the network. So one thing to note here is there could be unlimited number of nodes in the network. So on one gateway node and unlimited number of mesh nodes, and all will work. So more the number of nodes, the greater will be the stability of the network. So that's how it works.